too much reckless people and reckless crime happening, where I think we need to shake the tables a little bit and bring back fear of doing something wrong. Like, oh, hey, if you steal, you get your hand chopped off.
But crime in America is out of control.
Kind of funny how every decision America has made in the last 4 years has been in favor of the criminals.
When I said crime is soaring, he said, no, crime has gone down. I said, where did you hear that one?
If there's one issue that seems to animate right-wing media and influencers, it is crime in America. From the Reagan Renaissance to today, right-wing media thrives on telling Americans that they're not safe and they need strong right-wing people in office to protect them from a crime epidemic. Hi, my name's Liz, and I talk about whatever's on my mind. A few weeks ago, my conservative dad sent me a news article that he found interesting. The title read, "America's incarceration rate is about to fall off a cliff." The article explores the data. The for-profit prison system is going to face a problem. Crime rates are simply not keeping up with how many prisons America has built. That's a good problem, right? The article reads, using data from the U.S. Department of Justice shows the collapse of criminal arrests among minors in the 21st century. Rapidly declining numbers of youth are committing crimes, getting arrested, and being incarcerated. This matters because young offenders are the raw material that feeds the prison profit system. As one generation ages out, another takes its place on the same horrid journey. The U.S. had an extremely high crime generation followed by a low crime generation, meaning that the older population is not being replaced at an equal rate. The impact of this shift on the prison population began more than a decade ago, but has been little noticed because it takes so long for the huge prison population to clear. But such a transformation is now well underway. One statistic vividly illustrates the change. In 2007, the imprisonment rate for 18 to 19-year-old men was more than 5 times that of men over the age of 64. But today, men in those normally crime-prone late adolescent years are imprisoned at half the rate that senior citizens are today. So what is stopping this crime? To look into that, I turn to a city that is well known for its history of crime, Baltimore. In Baltimore, since 2020, homicides have dropped by 40% and non-fatal shootings have declined by 43%. That's all according to data from the mayor's office. Over the past year, crime rates have continued to drop across all categories, including robberies, carjackings, and arson. The data goes on to show that shooting suspects are being arrested at higher rates, with a homicide clearance rate of 64% and a 44% clearance rate for non-fatal shootings, which is 20% above the police department for Baltimore's 10-year average. We've also seen a significant drop among other violent crimes like assault and rape. Rape is down 35%, carjackings are down 15%, and assaults are down 11%. Police said officers have also seized more than 1,300 guns and 150 ghost guns off the streets. That's an average of 7 weapons seizures a day. Baltimore's reduction in violent crime is not a random, sporadic issue. In fact, the city of Baltimore has taken steps to reduce crime that highlight what actually works to reduce crime in our communities. This includes the mayor's Group Violence Reduction Strategy. It is a program where local police partner with community groups and use data to intervene before crime is about to happen. For example, perhaps a young person is making troubling posts on social media that glorify violence and allude to gang membership. The Violence Reduction Strategy partners find that young person and hold a meeting with them where they offer resources to help them choose a different path. It's kind of like an intervention, but an intervention to stop a crime or a life that would lead to crime before it happens. And it works. Baltimore is now on track to hit its lowest homicide rate in over 50 years. The city still has a lot of work to do, though. It is now tackling juvenile crime after a huge jump in the number of juvenile arrests in 2024. While gun-related juvenile shootings were down 22%, in 2024, juvenile arrests were up 146%. The mayor has rolled out a new program aimed at summer intervention when juveniles are most at risk of crime. The Summer Youth Engagement Strategy helps connect youth to work and volunteer opportunities, as well as to programs to keep them occupied while on summer break. Summer is traditionally the time of year when crime spikes for youth, and Baltimore's leadership has focused on breaking that cycle by giving youth something to do. As my mom would say, idle hands are the devil's workshop. I know it's old-fashioned, but just because it's old-fashioned doesn't mean it's not true. Programs like this that actually work, that reduce crime and keep people out of jail, these programs are under threat by the Trump White House. The White House under Joe Biden poured hundreds of millions of dollars into community violence interruption programs. These programs aim to break the cycle of retribution that leads to homicide deaths. But the new president is directly cutting funding to these programs. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott has sharply criticized the Trump administration for cutting federal public safety grants that are directly tied to local crime reduction efforts and victim services.
Our latest reporting at CBS News is as many as 500 crime victims groups across the country may have lost access to their federal grant money, which could put some of them out of business, force some layoffs or reductions in services. We are told that will include at least some services in Baltimore. We also know a major Landover organization, the National Center for Victims of Crime, which runs a hotline across the country for crime victims to call, nearly had to shutter the hotline and is facing cutbacks due to the grant money as well.
This administration has cut approximately $200 million from the city of Baltimore. That's around 75 grants to the Department of Justice that affect law enforcement, victims of crime, and community partners working to reduce violence. The answer to violent crime is not to arrest our way out of the problem, or as Amir Odom says, go around cutting people's hands off for stealing. That has never worked to reduce crime. What has worked, proven crime prevention strategies that offer people a way out of crime as a solution to the problems they face in their everyday lives. I think what frustrates me so much about folks like Amir Odom and Fox News and the media and the right-wing influencer industry that tells us to be afraid of our neighbors in our community is how much sway they have over their audience, how easily people believe that they are not safe. Crime is not the number one issue facing this country. In fact, we know that we have strategies that will work to prevent crime, and it's not chopping off hands or harsher jail sentences. Yet, due to the natural tendency of media and influencers to focus on quote-unquote bad news for clicks and views, Americans commonly believe, like the majority of Americans believe, that crime is a huge issue in this country that needs to be fixed. In 23 of 27 national surveys done by Gallup since 1993, Americans reported that they thought crime nationwide was rising, even though most of those surveys were done during a crime decline, in fact. This is from Vox and an article about why Americans consistently think that crime is higher than it is. Crime is one of the best examples we have of bad news bias. By definition, a murder is an outlier event that grabs our attention, inevitably leading it to lead on the local nightly news. Sometimes, as during the pandemic, that bias can match our reality. But if we fail to adjust to what is actually happening around us, not just what we think is happening, it won't just make us think our cities are more dangerous than they really are. It will sap up energy for the reforms that can really make a difference. The Trump administration is actively taking away resources from our local communities to fight crime. Resources that are desperately needed to keep youth from going down a path that would lead to a jail sentence and to a life that harms them. But instead of focusing on all those cuts and how they're damaging crime prevention strategies in our communities, influencers are focusing on xenophobia and anti-immigrant hate, accusing migrants of causing more violent crime against Americans. But the number one person most likely to commit a violent crime in America is a white man, not a migrant or an African American person or a young person in their community. None of this rhetoric that these right-wing media influencers use to stir up passion about violent crime reduces violent crime. We know what works. America does have problems. I would never argue that America doesn't have problems. But we need to focus on these actual issues instead of fear-mongering about our cities and our communities. Thanks for watching. This is a little rant that has been in my head for a week or so, and I thought I would just sit down today and chat about it because every time I hear a right-wing media influencer talk about crime, I can immediately tell that they don't know the statistics. And just because you saw someone was harmed on the nightly news does not mean that there is an increase in violent crime or you were likely to be a victim of violent crime. In fact, the statistics show that you are safer in America today than when I was born in the 90s. And thanks to President Trump, we're actually seeing a decrease in funding and these programs that will help keep American cities safe and will help prevent youth from choosing to commit a crime. Thanks for watching. If you want to join my channel for early access to videos and subscriber exclusive videos, be sure to check out my channel membership. You can also check out Jasper and Elm, where I'm wearing this gorgeous, it's supposed to be like those like candy necklaces that you like chewed on when you grew up. It's kind of like that, except it's not candy, it's like stone. It's really gorgeous. Jasper and Elm, send it to me. You can use my code Liz15 to get 15% off any of the jewelry on their sites. So if it ever catches your eye, be sure and go check it out. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see y'all all around the internet. Till next time, see ya.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.